The movie begins with two brothers, Paul and Peter, who are trying to open a stolen safe. You might wonder why they're thieves at such an age. Well, they're born thieves. Their mother, too, had just come here while fleeing with her boyfriend after committing a theft. The police had chased them to this place, so she left her children behind and ran off with her boyfriend so the kids would be safe. But as they tried to escape from the wagon, the police surrounded them. In the chaos, the mother's boyfriend swallowed the stolen diamonds, and of course, he must have died. The story then jumps ahead 25 years. The two brothers are still planning a heist, working through every detail: how they'll steal the money, how they'll escape the vehicle, everything. During their conversation, they also argue about how their mother abandoned them, forcing them to survive by stealing. After hashing out this argument, they set out to commit the robbery. Paul's job is to open the locker, and Peter's job is to watch for the police. But the moment Paul opens the locker, a police officer arrives and finds Peter nearby. The officer begins questioning Peter, and Peter starts giving strange answers to make the cop think he's crazy. As the officer moves to arrest Peter, Paul attacks that very officer. The brothers realize they've been caught when more officers arrive. Paul manages to run away, but poor Peter, with his short, slow steps, can't get far and is arrested. A few years later, Peter is released early because he made a deal with a police officer named Albert. Details of that deal will emerge as the story goes on. Officer Albert warns Peter that if he doesn't complete the assigned task, Albert will send him back to jail. Albert's father is a judge, and his influence is what secured Peter's early release. Meanwhile, Paul, who left the criminal life behind, took a job at a restaurant and married a decent woman. They were expecting a son, but then the plot twists. Paul's boss discovers Paul's criminal past and fires him. When Paul returns home, he finds Peter there. Paul asks how Peter got out of jail so quickly, and Peter reveals the deal with Warden Albert. Albert wants them to steal some diamonds. Paul, angered, says he's given up that life and doesn't want to talk about it. To smooth things over, Paul invites Peter to a small party at his place, a gesture of goodwill. Peter, who hasn't had a good meal in a long time, eagerly accepts and starts enjoying himself. But during the party, Peter behaves badly, starts insulting Paul, and joins Paul's brother-in-law in doing drugs. Seeing this, Paul chases Peter out, and Peter goes to spend the night at a hotel. Before the night ends, Albert arrives, strikes Peter, and scolds him. "I gave you a task and you're just partying." Peter says he's trying to build a team, but Albert is furious. He takes Peter's fingerprints onto a gun and warns him that if he doesn't do the job, he'll throw him back in jail. The next day, Paul went to see Peter. When he noticed the marks on Peter's forehead, he realized the officer had beaten him. Peter told Paul that Albert had also taken his fingerprints, so no matter what, he had to complete the job. Reluctantly, Paul agreed to help. He phoned his wife and said he was going away on business for 2 days, then set off with Peter to carry out the plan. When Albert returned to the hotel the following day, he discovered Peter was gone. He reported this to his father, the judge, who grew angry. "I gave you a simple task and you failed." Humiliated, Albert promised his father he would find Peter and bring back the diamonds. Though Albert's wealthy father being obsessed with diamonds seemed ridiculous, Albert felt the sting of shame and was determined to make it right. Meanwhile, Paul and Peter had traveled all night to a house that turned out to belong to Peter's girlfriend. After so long apart, a celebration was in order. Peter went into a room with his girlfriend while Paul sat outside watching television. A chimpanzee, belonging to Peter's girlfriend, then wandered in. At first, Paul was startled, but when he interacted with the animal, he realized how clever it was. It even smoked a cigarette, giving off a full vibe. But when the chimp did something unexpected, Paul panicked and ran. While Peter's girlfriend went to the bathroom, Paul stole her identity card and fled. It was clear Paul had only come to the house to grab her work ID. The brothers left and checked into a hotel for the night. While Peter was showering, Paul went through Peter's belongings and discovered letters written to Peter by their mother. She was alive and was still in his contacts. Paul felt betrayed. When he confronted Peter, Peter lied, saying their mother had cancer and didn't have much time left, so they needed to help her in her final moments. Paul, who was easily convinced, accepted this explanation. Just then, the other door of the hotel room opened and their mother, Olivia, appeared. Seeing her, Paul noticed she was not as beautiful as he had imagined. The three sat down and talked. Paul, furious, demanded where she had been all these years. Olivia explained that she had been hiding and running to escape the police. She told them that when she and her boyfriend had fled from the police, the boyfriend had swallowed the diamonds and died. She had buried his body somewhere. The body was buried, she said, but the diamonds inside him were still alive, meaning the diamonds were still inside the corpse. They would have to extract the diamonds from the dead man's body. Paul was outraged and swore he would not take part in such a theft. It would be a betrayal and a setup by Officer Albert. In anger, he smashed the bathroom. Peter tried to calm him down and argued that they were not stealing new goods but merely reclaiming what had been taken from their family years ago. Paul, easily persuaded, agreed to help. Albert, searching for Peter, went to the girlfriend's house. She claimed to know nothing and insisted the brothers had only come to steal her identity card. Albert shoved a knife to her throat, demanding the truth. At that moment, the chimpanzee intervened, creating chaos and allowing Albert to flee in disarray. Paul, Peter, and Olivia then learned where the boyfriend's body had been buried. Using the girlfriend's stolen ID, Peter managed to get onto a construction site and commandeered a JCB. They brought the machine to the exact plot of land where the diamonds might be. Over the years, the land had become private property, but they didn't hesitate. They trespassed and dug a massive pit. There, they finally uncovered the boyfriend's skeleton and reached inside the bones to retrieve the diamonds. A new problem arose. The owner of the property appeared alive and began chasing them. The three of them climbed into the JCB and fled, eventually reaching the edge of a forest. There they decided they had to rebury the skeleton, so they began to bury it again. Paul's voice cut through the tense quiet. He'd heard Peter say that Paul had lost his job, but Paul had never told anyone. So how did Peter know? The realization hit Paul like a blow. Peter and their mother must have been involved in the plot to get him out of work. Enraged, Paul lunged at Peter, threatening to bury him right there. Olivia, their mother, stepped between them and pulled Paul aside, trying to calm him down. She begged him to remember that, however flawed Peter might be, he was still Paul's brother and didn't deserve that kind of treatment. Paul's anger, however, ran too deep. He accused Olivia of abandoning them in childhood and only returning now when she needed them. Olivia denied the accusation fiercely. She confessed that she had been running and hiding from the police all those years, and that when she and her boyfriend fled, the boyfriend had swallowed the diamonds and died. She had buried his body, she said, but the diamonds were still alive inside him. They would have to dig them out of the corpse. Olivia told Paul she had planned everything so that even if she could not provide for them while alive, she could at least make them wealthy before she died. Her words were meant to be tender. To Paul, they felt like another betrayal. Meanwhile, Albert, still hunting them, had followed their trail into the forest. He grabbed Peter and declared, "I'll throw you back in jail." Paul attacked Albert to free his brother, but it was no use. Albert quickly surrounded Paul. In the struggle, Paul flung the diamonds into the trees. Olivia, quick and cunning, scooped them up. Albert cornered her and threatened, "Give me those diamonds or I'll kill your children." It looked like Albert would win the prize, but Olivia had one more move. She bolted with the diamonds. The brothers stared, stunned, at a mother who clearly hadn't changed. Albert arrested Paul and Peter and began taking them toward the police station. Inside the vehicle, the brothers argued bitterly about Olivia, about whether she was selfish, loving, or both. The anger between them boiled over into a physical fight, which caused the car to crash. Albert was knocked unconscious. Seizing the moment, Paul and Peter stole Albert's car and drove to the place where the skeleton had been buried. Paul phoned his wife to promise he'd be home soon. Peter urged him to go home and avoid getting deeper into this mess because Paul had a family to protect. Paul replied sharply that family included Peter too. He wasn't going to abandon his brother, and then led Peter to the place where Olivia could be found. Olivia, meanwhile, had taken the diamonds to a buyer and cashed most of them in, keeping 3 diamonds aside for the future. With a sack of money in hand, she left, only to run smack into Paul and Peter waiting for her. Shocked and betrayed, Olivia tried to explain herself, but the brothers had little trust left. Paul accused her outright. She'd planned this to get money for herself and to manipulate her children into doing her work. Olivia proposed they make an agreement to split the money equally, but after past betrayals, Paul didn't believe her. Olivia's actions confirmed his doubts. She darted away toward a nearby mall with the money bag. The brothers chased her. Paul tackled Olivia and the bag slipped from her hands, falling toward Peter, who stood below. Peter grabbed the bag with Heist, and in that instant, Albert reappeared, gun pointed at them, demanding the money. Peter hid with the sack while Paul approached with a plan. They would surrender on their terms. They walked up to Albert and told him they were ready to hand themselves over. Albert gruffly said, "Give me that bag of money and I'll let you go." Before anything could be handed over, the brothers began arguing again over the bag. A heated scene their mother watched from a distance, her face a reflection of how her choices had driven her own children to fight one another. In the middle of all the chaos, Paul angrily shouted that he should never have come to the shopping mall in the first place. Peter, instead of calming things down, began blaming Paul for everything that had happened, saying it was all his fault. Their argument only made the situation worse. and Albert, growing impatient and furious, fired a warning shot into the air, demanding, "Give me that money!" Startled and terrified, the two brothers threw the money bag toward Albert, but the moment he opened it, a burst of chemicals sprayed straight into his eyes, blinding him. In pain and panic, Albert began firing wildly in all directions. One of his stray bullets hit a nearby gas cylinder, causing a massive explosion. The blast was so powerful that it was clear Albert didn't survive it. Once the chaos settled, Olivia, their mother, appeared. She picked up the bag full of money and handed it to her sons, saying gently that she didn't want to see either of them end up in jail. Then, taking full responsibility, she walked away and surrendered herself to the police. Watching her go, both brothers were moved to tears, realizing that, despite everything, this was a true act of a mother's love. Later, Paul went to see the judge, the same one who had Albert's influence, and paid him off to get back the gun that had Peter's fingerprints on it. That way, he ensured his brother wouldn't ever be linked to Albert's death. When Paul returned home, we saw that his wife had given birth to a baby girl. Peter, showing how deeply he cared for his family, used up all of his remaining money to buy a piece of land for his niece, so that her future would be secure forever. From then on, the two brothers began living together peacefully. Sometime later, they went to visit their mother, and for the first time in years, they were truly happy. They didn't have much money left, but their lives were filled with warmth, laughter, and love. Seeing their contentment, Olivia handed them the remaining diamonds she had never sold. She gave Peter 3 of them. But Peter, being the mischievous and slightly greedy brother he'd always been, told Paul there were only 2. He gave 1 to Paul and quietly kept 2 for himself. And that's how this wild, twisted story of family, betrayal, and hidden diamonds finally comes to an end. What a journey it's been, full of lies, greed, and a mother's love that somehow still shines through it all. So friends, if you enjoyed this story even a little, make sure to smash that like button, and let's hit a target of 50,000 likes for this epic thriller. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. Whose side were you on? Paul's, Peter's, or their clever moms? We'll meet again soon with another mind-blowing story. Till then, stay safe and stay curious.